Hello, welcome to Thursdays on the Stoop. I'm Julian Gentleman. This is Blue Stoop. And today we have Auto-Mythologies with Alexandria Valentine. Alexandria is a Southern of Center writer and editor based in Chicago. They hold a Bachelor of Fine Arts with an emphasis in creative writing from the School of the Art Institute of Chicago and a Master of Fine Arts in creative writing from the Columbia University School of the Arts, where they were a Felipe De Alba Fellow. So glad you could be here. Alexandria, take it away.
Hello. Nice to meet you all. If you want to drop your name, pronouns in the chat, and even where you're from, that'd be cool. I can take a peek at that. So yeah, thank you for the lovely introduction, Julian. So as Julian said, my name is Alexandria Valentine. I'm from Chicago, but I'm a grandbaby of the Great Migration, so I do recognize myself as Southern of Center because of that and growing up with my grandparents, all my grandfolks. And today we're going to be chatting about auto-mythologies, specifically in flash fiction, tracing memory and examining familial trauma. You might also hear a little tip taps in the background of my dog pacing because he wants to go outside every 2 seconds, just as a little heads up. But yeah, flash fiction, one of my favorite things in the whole world. See if it'll let me go to the next thing. Fantastic. And before we get started, I want to share a quote that feels very important to the moment and to this class and the writing by Hans Selye. And that is, "What is in us must out. Otherwise, we may explode at the wrong places or become hopelessly hemmed in by frustrations." So just something to keep in mind as we're writing. So what is flash fiction? Flash fiction is a very short story, usually 750 to 1,500 words, requiring character, conflict, and a story arc despite its short length. I feel like sometimes folks don't necessarily think of flash fiction as something that needs beginning, middle, end, conflict, and some sort of change. It's like, oh, I can sort of bypass some of those things because it's so tiny. And it's like, no, that's a part of what makes a flash fiction story great, is because you're still getting all those elements in, but in a very rapid sort of pace. So, some insight into why I think folks should write flash fiction. For one, flash has a sense of urgency that like short stories often in novels do not have. You can almost sort of imagine it as taking hold of your reader and saying, I have to tell you this thing right now. It's urgent. It can't wait. With a novel, you can kind of like crack it open. You're spending more time with the characters, you're spending more time with the plot, and maybe you don't get to the super intense point of the novel until maybe halfway through. But with flash fiction, that's happening at a much more rapid pace. That's also a reason why I find it a good container for writing about familial trauma. The healing work is urgent for us to be living our best lives out in the world and relating to each other in the best ways we know how. And your story is important. And I feel like it well, we can jump down really quick to accessibility in that way as well, where like it's more accessible, I think, for some writers to say, this is the thing I need to get out of my body. Like, this is what I need to release out of my body today, right now. And it doesn't have to take months or years as a novel might. That also brings me to the second bullet point, the structural limits of flash breeding creativity. If you can write 200 pages, you have time to get to something. But if I tell you you have 1,500 words or 500 words, there's some decisions that you're going to have to make that you would not otherwise have to make if you're writing something longer. When it comes to character, when it comes to plot, even when it comes to words, like you'd say, oh, maybe I'm not going to be using so many ands, so many buts, because there really has to be an economy of language. Okay. So dissecting flash fiction. The why. I like to think of this one as, why does this story need to be told? And also, why do you urgently need to release this story from your body? I sort of like to think about writing for me as putting a story or an experience somewhere outside of my body so it doesn't have to live with me anymore. And maybe it'll still be there, but it won't be there as heavy. So that's sort of how I like to look at it. And that goes into the why. Why do I need to put this somewhere else? Why does it need to exist somewhere else? Why don't I want it to just be living with me as heavy as it's been living with me? And the who is the narrator? Who are the main characters? Very, very, very important to consider, especially in this piece that we're going to be reading in a few minutes. Because that's the likely, your narrator, that's who you're going to be with the whole time. You want to make sure it's interesting. You want to make sure you can kind of grab your reader right away, like I was saying earlier, and look them right in their eyes to get them immediately to say, you need to listen to this, and this is why. Oops. The what change has occurred in the story, like I was saying earlier. I feel like Flash, one of the misconceptions of it is that it doesn't have all the components of like a regular short story. But a big thing in any story is that there needs to be a change. There needs to be a change in your character. If you've ever read a story and maybe it feels like it's sort of dragging and you're kind of like, feels like nothing's happening, or even if you watch a movie, that's sort of a thing that's come up in movies that maybe aren't the best, where you're like, why am I watching this? Like you sit back 30 minutes later and you're like, why am I here? Likely there hasn't been a change in the story. There hasn't been a change in the character. The character's just kind of going along. And by the time the ending of the movie or the ending of the book has come, you're like, they didn't change. They didn't learn anything, like for worse or for better. So you do want to keep that in mind because your character, you still do want them to change. The how does the author make the work successful? This comes in a lot of different ways, like it can come in stylization and sort of your own flair. As a writer, it can come with different devices like repetition or, alliteration, or maybe adding speculative elements to your writing. So yeah, we'll identify some of those things in a moment in a piece we're going to take a look at. Okay. Has anyone ever read this piece, Girl by Jamaica Kincaid? Anybody? Can I even see the chat? Don't know where it went on the screen. So okay, there's the chat box. Okay, cool. No worries. Is there anyone who wants to read it, or would you all prefer if I read it? Also, if you need it bigger, let me know in the chat. Okay, it's small on your monitor. Let's see if I can. Oopsies, that's even smaller. Okay, is that a bit bigger? Ooh. Love when my computer doesn't act like a computer. One more notch. Trying to make sure we can see the notes too. We can just read it first anyway. But that's good? Okay, cool. So actually, we're going to take a look at these questions first, then we'll pop back over. So while we're reading, I want you all to keep these things in mind. What we just went over, basically. Why does the story need to be told? Who's the narrator? Who are the main characters? What changes occurred in the story? And how does the author make the work successful? Okay, and I don't think anyone offered to read, so I can go ahead and read if there's not anyone. Just double check. Okay. So Girl by Jamaica Kincaid. Wash the white clothes on Monday and put them on the stone heap. Wash the color clothes on Tuesday and put them on the clothesline to dry. Don't walk barehead in the hot sun. Cook pumpkin fritters in very hot sweet oil. Soak your little cloths right after you take them off. When buying cotton to make yourself a nice blouse, be sure that it doesn't have gum in it, because that way it won't hold up well after a wash. Soak saltfish overnight before you cook it. Is it true that you sing Benna in Sunday school? Always eat your food in such a way that it won't turn someone else's stomach. On Sundays, try to walk like a lady, and not like the slut you are so bent on becoming. Don't sing Benna in Sunday school. You mustn't speak to wharf rat boys, not even to give directions. Don't eat fruits on the street. Flies will follow you. but I don't sing Benna on Sundays at all, and never in Sunday school. This is how to sew on a button. This is how to make a buttonhole for the button you have just sewn on. This is how to hem a dress when you see the hem coming down, and so to prevent yourself from looking like the slut I know you are so bent on becoming. This is how you iron your father's khaki shirt so that it doesn't have a crease. This is how you iron your father's khaki pants so that they don't have a crease. This is how you grow okra, far from the house, because okra trees harbors red ants. When you are growing dasheen, make sure it gets plenty of water, or else it makes your throat itch when you're eating it. This is how you sweep a corner. This is how you sweep a whole house. This is how you sweep a yard. This is how you smile to someone you don't like too much. This is how you smile to someone you don't like at all. This is how you smile to someone you like completely. This is how you set a table for tea. This is how you set a table for lunch. For dinner. Sorry. This is how you set a table for dinner with an important guest. This is how you set a table for lunch. This is how you set a table for breakfast. This is how to behave in the presence of men who don't know you very well. And in this way, they won't recognize immediately the slut I have warned you against becoming. Be sure to wash every day, even if it is with your own spit. Don't squat down to play marbles. You are not a boy, you know. Don't pick people's flowers. You might catch something. Don't throw stones at blackbirds, because it might not be a blackbird at all. This is how to make bread pudding. This is how to make ducona. This is how to make pepper pot. This is how to make good medicine for a cold. This is how to make a good medicine to throw away a child before it even becomes a child. This is how to catch a fish. This is how to throw back a fish you don't like. And that way, something bad won't fall on you. This is how to bully a man. This is how a man bullies you. This is how to love a man. And if this doesn't work, there are other ways. And if they don't work, don't feel too bad about giving up. This is how to spit up in the air if you feel like it. And this is how to move quick so that it doesn't fall on you. This is how to make ends meet. Always squeeze bread to make sure it's fresh. But what if the baker won't let me feel the bread? You mean to say that after all, you're really going to be the kind of woman who the baker won't let near the bread? Okie dokie. So anyone want to tell me just some things you noticed off bat from that first read? And it could be anything, things you like, things you dislike, things you might want to steal when you're trying to write your own. Wow, yeah, it's my favorite piece of, somebody in the chat said, wow. Slut shaming, yeah, exactly. There's definitely a lot of that. The writer maybe is trying to pass along wisdom before they leave this earth. Okay, so it could come across as that way as well. Who does it sound like our narrator is? The girl. Okay. Narrator sounds like mother, a mother, grandmother, or mother. Okay. Mother, I'm saying a lot of mother, grandmother, parent. Yeah, I always read it as the mother, but then talking to a friend, actually, they brought it up to me. They're like, it could be a mother, but also it sort of functions as it could be any adult or anybody who's sort of like enforcing the patriarchy onto young girls. James says, oh, Havana says inner voice, question mark. That I actually really like that take. And then James says, like the repetition, evolution of the I know you are becoming / warned / you warned you against becoming, etc. Definitely. Yeah, I always find it very intense. Like I know she's speaking, whoever is speaking to this child. Someone else said brainwashed, but I always feel a little bit like they're speaking to me too. And it always takes me aback a little bit. And I find that perhaps it's the way the writer is writing without any periods, I want to say, until the very end of the piece. If you see, there's only commas, we have some semicolons, we have some dashes, but also if you could hear, I was running out of breath numerous times as I was reading it. And I feel like that's also a part of what makes it feel a little bit like, oh my gosh, are you talking to me? Elizabeth said, I struggle a bit with the lack of paragraph breaks. For sure. And I think it's purposeful. It's supposed to be overwhelming. It's supposed to be intense because, it's not a picture, right? We can't see like this large, tall adult looking down on this child, but I think the way the text is written makes it feel like that, you know? You're supposed to be out of breath, you're supposed to be sort of anxious. Sylvia says, the urgency and intensity really makes me think the narrator might run out of time. Definitely, it definitely gives that feeling of, I have to give you all this information. One, because it's sort of like we were talking about before, this is very important, you need this right now. And that's sort of like on two ends. For one, the narrator, whoever that might be, like you all were saying, could be a parent, could also be the child sort of talking to themselves, which is also very interesting. But it's sort of like, I need to impart this on you right now. Someone else might not tell you this, but this is the only way you're gonna like get by in this world. And it seems very much so like the person who is telling the little girl this has lived this life themselves. And this is cyclical, you know, like someone told them this and they know enough and they've been alive enough, long enough to like have acquired all this knowledge and perhaps seen the repercussions of not following these rules. So they need to impart that on the child now. Let's see. Oh, you're saying your eyes. It does a lot to the eyes. It does a lot. Yeah, it is visually sort of an overload as well when you're reading it and looking at it. Sylvia says, yes, someone's told them this list of rules. I definitely get that feeling as well. Kat says, the repetition and structure that goes between really concrete and really complex abstract ideas makes it feel overwhelming and hypnotic at times. Definitely. It definitely feels overwhelming, and I feel, you know, purposely sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Disorienting. Because can you imagine being like perhaps a 5-year-old child and I'm telling you these very concrete things of like, this is how you find good bread. Do you sing Benna on Sundays in Sunday school? And like, and then calling someone a slut all at the same, like, you know, saying all those things as if they are so casual and they belong together. Let's see, Xander said, I liked how the following instructions would sometimes modify and amplify the previous one. Exactly. This is how you sweep a corner. This is how you sweep a whole house. Absolutely. Yeah, Jamaica Kincaid, it's wonderful. The piece leaves no room to question these rules, like the child has no space to get a word in, to object, to clarify, or even to agree. Exactly. It's very much so, I'm sucking up all the air in the room. There is none for you except the little bit I'm giving you to do what I told you to do. For sure. Thank you for these really wonderful ideas and notes. Oh, Elizabeth. I was gonna get to that. Yeah, that's I feel like that's also why I find Jamaica Kincaid so masterful, because one, at first, it does seem like there has been no change, right? But I will counter that with, for one, if you look at what's one of the one things in this text that's a visual difference, we have this very, well, maybe I'll just say that, like, is there anything that strikes you when you're looking? I know it looks all very intense and overwhelming, but when you're reading, is there anything that looks a little different from anything else? There's no answering dialogue back. She can manage to. There's a question at the end. There is a question at the end. So something other than the question now. And it happens, what, I'll say like 2 times in the text. So it's easy to miss. Exactly, Alana, thank you. The italics. The first bit of italics we have up here, the little girl, we're assuming, says, but I don't sing Benna on Sundays at all, and never in Sunday school. And then at the very end, but what if the baker won't let me feel the bread? Those are the only 2 times this little girl has enough space to speak. And while she's not just telling her mom, you don't know what you're talking about, walking away, it's still a bit of tension, it's still a bit of conflict, it's still a little bit of growth to say, this person is just saying, and don't do this, and don't do that, and don't do this, and don't do that. And the little girl gets an inch in where she hadn't gotten an inch in before. To say, but wait, I don't do that. That's not who I am. It's to say, but I'm still a person here. I still have something to say. Like, I'm not just going to let you completely ball me up, you know, make me fall into myself completely. So that's what I see as the change in the text, where it's like, there's a shift from the mother, the parent, to the child, but there's also something that is shifted in the little girl to say, like, wait, I actually have questions about this. Like, and also like, I'm not the person you're seeing me as. And it's like the wheels are turning, you know? And that's a thing too when it comes to any sort of writing fiction, but also, as we're saying, in flash fiction, it doesn't have to be that, I don't know, your character starts off as the worst person in the world and they're a saint by the end of it, you know? It doesn't have to be that. It can be something very small. It can be something where your reader might have to read a couple times to see that, but it'll still be felt when they read it. You know, they might have to dig a little bit deeper afterwards, but it's something that's still going to be felt. It won't be that feeling of like, what even happened here? Why did I read this? Kat said M dashes with direct statements. Those dashes do a lot of work. I know there's like I won't say an uproar, but there's a little bit of folks having a little bit of tizzy with the dashes because the AI does the dashes now. But I'm like, we've been dashing way before Miss AI. So just saying. And Alana says, holding on to some form of autonomy. Exactly. Even if it's a little bit, you know, because it matters. Imagine if the child had said absolutely nothing at all, you know, and it was only the parent, the mother speaking. Marge says, something in the robotic composition makes me think that the child narrator knows this is wrong, even if she can't articulate it. I also get that feeling, you know, I also get that feeling where this does feel very robotic and it feels, I think, you know, because Jamaica Kincaid, based on some of the things that I've read, other fiction from her that I've read, you know, she is talking about sort of like the insidiousness of the patriarchy and what that does to girls, girl children, women, like, and I very much so see that in this piece. I think there is a roboticness to the patriarchy where it's like, these are the rules, let me type them up, print them out for you, and do not deviate. But there's definitely a power in this deviation by this little girl. So yeah, that's one of my favorite pieces. Let's take a look at this piece. Is so well done. So I just want to take a look at the questions. And if you all want to type in the chat, or you can take yourself off mute. The first question, why does this story need to be told? I'll give you a second to think about that.
Alexandria,
Yes.
I don't know if I like decided it was an act of resistance and then I tried to find a way to prove it to myself, but I feel like that's why it needs to be told. Even though the child can't articulate why this is wrong, the the relentlessness of the form is driving that home to me. It feels like an act of resistance.
Absolutely, I agree with you. I do think it's an act of resistance. I think it's an act of resistance for the little girl in the story, as you were saying. I think it's an act of resistance to have this piece exist at all in the world, knowing that there will be other people of any gender who are going to read it. And so it kind of, you know, it makes you scratch your head a little bit after you've read it to say, wait, even if you are a person who has accepted things of this nature and said, well, yeah, this is how girls are supposed to be. I think it would still kind of make you, it would be kind of like an itch in the back of your brain to be like, wait a minute, you know? So I definitely agree that it is an act of resistance. And why I also like flash fiction in this way, where it's like, back to the accessibility piece, if you're trying to, James Baldwin has a quote where he says, like, if you can change the way somebody looks at the world, even just by an inch, then you can change the world, you can change people. And I think Flash is good for that in that way, because I might not hand somebody a novel on the street and be like, will you read this thing? But like, I can probably get somebody to read a short Flash piece. And once you read that Flash piece, if it has done the work that it is supposed to do, it's going to stay with you. And there's something that's going to sit in your brain and start percolating. And I really like that idea of like, I'm not going to ask you to read 50,000 words. Maybe I'll ask you to read 100 even. And we'll see what that maybe does for you. So thank you for that comment. Oh, we all decided the child was a girl, is what Elizabeth said. Yeah, we did decide that. I think one for the title, just by it being girl, but also, I mean, you know, I think when we think about the idea of sort of just like gender expansiveness and like, I think it is interesting to just think about like, okay, well, what if it wasn't a girl, you know? I think it's not, you know, wrong or in any way to sort of like think of it in that way. Xander says, it gives a window into her world. We're experiencing childhood for just a moment like she did. Absolutely. Yeah, it's like, I find it a bit uncomfortable for me in that way because I don't know, sometimes when I think of childhood, I think of a smallness that I don't find very comfortable. And that piece captures this very well. And because of the way she's written it, you know, yeah, we're very much so in her world, in her shoes. Cassie or Casey, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing it. To me, it feels like she is saying this out loud. Definitely, yeah, exactly what I imagine in my mind every time is a parent, a woman towering over a small child and saying this out loud. So thank you for those wonderful answers. Second question. We already kind of talked about this. Who's the narrator? Who are the main characters? A lot of people said parents, a mother, main characters, a child, and the mother or the parent. We talked about what change has occurred in the story. Well, I mostly talked about that. Maybe I should also open that back up to y'all. Like, if there's anything else you want to add about the change you feel has occurred, this little girl sort of standing up for herself. Yeah, if there's anything else you wanted to add, feel free.
Um, I can talk a little bit more about the change or another change that I think I've seen.
Okay.
I think that um, just by the organic progression of the way the piece moves, I think the change that happens is the intake of information or the hopeful intake of information for the child being addressed. And if we want to think of the child as a girl, then the girl being addressed. And um, I think that change I see most apparent in the way it closes with the question about, you mean to tell me after all of this basically information that you've taken in that I've imparted because I also have taken it in that you would let the baker not let you touch the bread? And so I think that change and the change being um well, interesting enough, it's both a change and a repetition, because it's the repetition of all of these roles that we associate with girlhood. Um, and then also the change being that you might start off as a quote unquote blank slate, and by the end of the, I guess, the indoctrination, if you will have been changed in that process too. So that's something that comes out to me.
Yeah, thanks, Stephanie. Yeah, there's definitely I would say that's a part of the insidiousness of it because it's like the little girl is fighting back, but the little girl's fighting back and there's this mountain of information and this mountain of like all these things that the parent is putting on to the little girl to be like, well, I hope you can continue to fight back because it would be pretty easy to sort of just like crumble under the weight of all these things that you're being told that you have to be. So yeah, thank you for that, Steph. And Cassie, to me, it feels like she is saying this out loud, generational trauma. Yeah, definitely. And the repetition and the sort of circular nature of it, and this ongoingness, and the way that there is no period in the piece, it does remind me of sort of like the sort of circular nature of time and the ongoingness of time. James says she puts herself into the scenario where she's squeezing the bread. Her last question is operating in the boundaries created by the instructor. That's true. She's still thinking about like, wait, okay, this is what you're telling me I have to do. So like, how do I exist? How do I further exist in that space, still existing in those boundaries? Very good, thank you. Let's see. My last question. How does the author make the work successful? We've already chatted about a few things, but if there's anything else that stands out to you, feel free. Susie says, it's interesting how she's expected to be in control of other people's behavior. Very much so. I feel like that's a big thing when you think about patriarchy. You know, it's like, you got to make sure you don't wear this because those other people will not be able to control themselves. You have to make sure you do this. It's always very much so about thinking about how other people will respond to you, you know, not letting people have responsibility for their own selves. Yeah, it's definitely very interesting. Xander says, the last line also gives a sense of the stakes from a social point. Who do you want to be in the community? Are you going to be accepted? Exactly, yeah, I mean, that's very much so like, I can imagine the parent, the mother being like, you're doing this for you, but you're also doing this for me and our family. Because we can't have people out here thinking I haven't raised you right and that I haven't given you this whole speech, you know, like, because then what will they think of me? Sylvia says, the last part about the bread also makes me wonder if there might be change in the narrator, not necessarily positive. From the narrator's assumption and thinking, she could prevent the girl from becoming a slut, to coming to terms with the fact that even after reciting those rules, the girl may become a slut after all. Exactly. Perhaps there is a sort of maybe a frustration or a sort of like, what do I do next in the narrator to be like, okay, maybe the speech won't work. How do I escalate? Does this need to be escalated? Definitely. I think that's a very good point, that there might be a sort of shift in the mother of like, okay, perhaps I thought my daughter was the type of child that I could just tell all these rules to and she'll absorb it and move forward with it, but perhaps that's not what I'm dealing with right now. Xander says, is the baker the only other character mentioned? There's the baker, and there's sort of like a general idea of like men, and like how to, what is it? Let's see. Yeah, the father as well. Yeah, see, she's at the top talking about you mustn't, let me highlight it, or will it let me highlight it? You mustn't speak to wharf rat boys. So this general idea of like little boys. And the father, when the narrator is talking about, where is it? This is how you iron your father's khaki shirt so that it doesn't have a crease. This is how you iron your father's khaki pants so that they don't have a crease. So it kind of seems like the only other characters, you know, are boys and men, and like how you move around them and how you interact with them.
I'd also love to throw in, I think I'm thinking about the nature elements too, and how some of the characters that join us are maybe the flies or the ants, and how there's always a resistance against, I think, the bugs and the insects in the natural world, because I think those things are oftentimes masculinized in a way, like when she tells her not to squat down, for example, to play marbles because she's not a boy. And just thinking about the things that maybe boy children can and cannot do and get away with and are expected to do. Because God forbid a young girl child, you know, get quote unquote dirty in the mud or in the grass or whatever.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, I think those, because imagine the piece without the natural elements, you know? Like, I feel like it would definitely be missing something for me. And yeah, like the intrusion of nature in what we're trying to perfect is like this perfect sort of world. Like, you know, no, the flies, they're out. You know, don't throw stones at blackbirds. Might not be a blackbird, but like you don't want nature to sort of intrude on this sort of perfect world where we're creating. Also, the moment about the red ants, the okra trees harbor the red ants, and so you grow okra far from the house. Yeah, I think those are lovely sort of additions. I think it's also cool, like sort of like what you were saying, like that the nature exists sort of outside of this world that the family is trying to create. And it's like the nature's doing what it wants and doing what it's born to do, you know, but the little girl is not given that sort of freedom. Okay, any last thoughts about Girl by Jamaica Kincaid before we get into our own writing? And it's fine if we don't have any other thoughts. Okay. Time to write. So we're gonna try for our own flash fiction story. And I'm just giving you a few sort of parameters. Okay, a few parameters just to sort of help. So instructions should be somewhere in there. If you want to just do straight up list, even if you want to, because that's one thing about flash fiction as well, like you can break the typical form. If you literally want to do 1 through 10 and literally number it like that, it's still a story. If you don't want to do it that way and you want to do it more in the realm of Girl by Jamaica Kincaid, that's also totally fine. In this story, there must be an adult talking to a child, and we're gonna shoot for 500 words or less. So, what time is it now? 3:42. Let's see what we can do if I give you up until 3:55, and then maybe we'll have 5-ish minutes to share. Julian, tell me if I'm cutting it too close.
Time you need.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Oh, just take all the time you need.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, so we'll do till 3:55, and then we can chat and see what we have. And drop anything in the chat if you have any questions. And I'll just take my video off for a moment. Okay, so that is time. Is there anyone who would like to share their work? You can read it and just hop on, unmute yourself, or you could also post it in the chat if you prefer for me to read it. Oh, Julian said we can pause the recording if people don't want it on YouTube. So also just give a shout if you feel one way or the other about that. Okay. Elizabeth, were you telling me because you want to read it? Or and Sylvia says you can read mine anonymously. I would love to. Just because Elizabeth commented first. Okay, yeah, you can just go ahead and unmute. Or did you want me to read it?
There, I got it. I'm a little slow with Zoom, sorry.
No worries.
These are things I learned from my grandmother lessons. Always wear a little lipstick, stand up straight, brush your hair 100 strokes each night, lay out your clothes at night so you don't dawdle in the morning, keep the seams on your tights straight, do your homework before watching TV, practice the piano for an hour every day, don't put your elbows on the table, chew with your mouth closed, scoop your soup spoon away from yourself, cover your mouth when you cough, always send a thank you note, change your sheet on Sundays, don't hit your sister, call Mr. Dixon daddy, and don't ask about your father.
Wow, thank you. Really enjoyed that. Thank you for sharing. Okay, and Sylvia, are you gonna send it to me? Drop it in the chat. Oh, maybe they wanted this message to be. Oh, let me see. I'll drop in the chat, but I don't want to record it. Okay. Yeah, so mine's 1,000 words. Julian, do we have time or? Oh, okay.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, they said it's okay. What was the last thing? Thank you for holding this space.
I'm sorry. I can also explain a little bit. The schedule I wrote on top was what I was given when I was a kid by my mom. And so it's really just the lower part. I'm not sure where the word count started. But I can read it quickly if everyone doesn't mind, or I don't have to. Sorry, I know we're over time. I'm gonna stop.
No, go ahead. I say go for it.
You can't just play games and watch TV all the time. Why are you sitting so close to the screen? Only you wear glasses in this family. Why are you so lazy? You have to work hard. Otherwise, you won't get good grades. You won't get to a good school. You will be a failure. You have to go to church. We're a household of God. If you don't go to church, our family will fall apart. Why are you talking to this boy? Who is he? What does his family do? I signed you up for these classes and you don't even try hard enough.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you. I hope you all enjoyed yourself and got something out of it and put a new tool in your toolbox.
So thank you so much, Alexandria. And thank you to everyone who shared work today and who participated so openly. I'm really grateful for your vulnerability and your creativity. I've just shared some links in the chat. Scroll up a little bit. There's a feedback survey where you can let Alexandria know what a great job they did. There's a link to our fall classes. In particular, we have a set of flash fiction oriented classes. called Viewpoints and Vantage Points with Avitus B. Carl, who is a fantastic flash fiction writer. Strongly recommended. We have payment plans, scholarships, and financial aid for anyone who needs it. Be sure to check that out if that's your situation. But more than anything, thank you for taking time out of your day to do something creative. If you'd like to support programs like this one, you can optionally donate at bluestoop.org/donate. There's a link right there in the chat for convenience, and we'll put the session up on YouTube as soon as we can. If you're around next week, please come to our publishing panel at the library from 6 to 8 p.m. next Thursday, October 9th. If you click where it says upcoming events, you'll see details about that right under October 9th. Thank you again, everyone.